Hi everyone, this is Dasha and this is my Talking to the Camera challenge. We're moving on to, I think it's day 9. And today I have a very niche topic to discuss, and this is how to enjoy reading more and get ourselves to read more regularly. And I want to have a little rant on this matter because this is what I'm struggling with myself. I remember I had periods in my life where I would read a lot and really enjoy fiction books, and I would find it so much more interesting than watching a film or playing a computer game or anything that I could possibly do in front of a screen. Reading would just bring me this innate pleasure just because when you read, it's your imagination that you use, and it's so much more entertaining when you can vividly imagine everything that's going on. You don't need any visual for that. But in order to enter that state and to want to run back to your book as soon as, you're finished with your chores or with your work, that habit has to be developed. And especially now in the modern days when we have a very short attention span, when we're used to scrolling through shorts on YouTube and switch from one type of content to another at the blink of an eye, it's very difficult to force ourselves to just sit down and dedicate some time to reading and enjoy it and not want to check your phone or go on social media platform or message our friends. All of those distractions are right there within our reach, and our brain would get instant gratification from doing that instead of the long-term gratification that we get from reading. I struggle with that myself so much just because I know how exciting reading can be for me, and I know what an amazing hobby it can develop into. But if I don't pick up a book for a few months at a time, then my brain forgets that long-term gratification that it gets, and it's then simply much easier for me to focus on something that requires a short attention span and not have to sit through longer periods trying to force myself to do something that my brain can't really focus on. So it's a problem I know firsthand, and I'm really trying right now to get myself back into that habit, into that enjoyment of reading, not for the sake of it, but because I know that it's enjoyable for me when I dedicate some time to it. The first one, and probably the most important one for me, is to create the space and give yourself some time to dedicate to reading. It doesn't really matter what time of day we pick to read, but it matters how we feel. We need to be relaxed. We need to know that even if we have things to do during the day, that we're not in immediate rush or need to go and do them. We need to have the time and space to forget for a little bit about everything that's going on in our lives and dive into this book that we want to read and really enjoy it and make the most of this time. In terms of the environment for reading, it's very important that it's quiet. Obviously, if it's not, or if you're in a public place, earplugs, they really help. And if you're at home, motivate yourself by creating as cozy an environment as you possibly can. What do you need to relax? Light a candle, tidy your space, make sure you're sitting on a soft, comfortable sofa or bed, make sure you're cozied up under a blanket. Also, it's super important to have sufficient lighting when you read so you don't have to strain your eyes and you don't get tired of reading 20 minutes down the line. If you need glasses, wear the glasses for reading. Basically create this environment in which you want nothing else but to relax and not think about anything and allow yourself to escape into the book. And that's when you motivate yourself to read. Next, to make it even easier for us to pick up a book and start reading, I think it's super important to choose the best format, which is the most convenient for us to read in. For some people it's paper books, for some it's Kindle. I would strongly advise against reading on your laptop or tablet or phone. Firstly, because of the light that's emitted by these devices, and it puts a strain on our eyes, and it's very difficult to continue reading for more than half an hour without tiring out our eyes. And secondly, just because it's very easy to get distracted and open a different tab and go on social media or do, a million of other things that tech offers us to do these days. So laptop or a tablet might not be the best option to help us keep our focus. Paper books are great just because they give you this extra tactile enjoyment of the touch of the paper and turning the pages, and also you can instantly see where you are in the book by just looking at where you have it open. Personally, I prefer using Kindle simply because I live in a very small space and I don't have space to store books. I don't have a bookcase, I don't have many shelves, so I just prefer to use the digital version of a book to be able to read a variety of books. I would call myself minimalistic, so I don't really like owning stuff or buying stuff, so digital books is the way to go for me. Now this next one is super important. Only read the books that you think you'll like, or choose the genres that you enjoy. Don't start reading with the books that are supposed to be world classics or the books that are massive like War and Peace. You will never get yourself into reading when you feel like you're reading what you have to rather than what you want to. Choose the stories that you enjoy. For example, if you have seen the whole of the Harry Potter franchise 5 times, but you haven't read the books, start with those books. You already know and enjoy the story, and diving into it will be much easier because you know the characters, you enjoy the plot lines, and let's be frank, these books are written in an interesting way. If you have a genre that you enjoy when you're watching films or series, start with the same genre for your first few books, just because it will provide this familiar environment and setting for you, and it'll just make it so much easier and more enjoyable for you to get into reading. If you find that you have to force yourself to read just because you don't enjoy the plot line or the genre or this particular book, you will never get yourself into the habit of reading because it will feel like a forced activity. Don't focus on the amount of books that you might want to read per year, or don't focus on the books that you think you should read. Just read for the enjoyment of the process. Choose the books that you know you will really like and start with those, and this will give you the incentive to come back to it. This will give you the motivation and the desire to relax and dive into that book again. Now, it will sometimes happen that we start reading a book and it's about something different than we imagined, or the plot line is just not as interesting as we would have hoped. And in those cases, it's absolutely fine to just set the book aside, put it back on the shelf, and start reading something else that will truly make us enjoy the process of reading. But the important bit is to always give the book a chance. It's rarely super exciting or engaging from chapter 1, page 1. Usually you have to read for a little bit to understand what the book is about, what the setup is for the plot, and then you can make a decision of whether you will enjoy reading it further or not. My personal rule is to read at least 3 chapters before I decide whether I want to continue reading or put the book to the side, but usually by chapter 3 or 4 I'm already very engaged and I keep reading just because I want to know what happens next. If we read the first 5 or 6 pages and then set the book aside just because we think it's just not interesting enough for us, then we risk missing out on so many exciting plot lines, on so many exciting characters, just because we didn't give it a chance. Reading is really one of those activities where patience is truly rewarded with time, so if you give the books a chance, 90% of the time you won't be disappointed and you won't regret it. And the last sort of personal rule that I try to stick to is making reading a daily habit for myself and to never pause reading altogether for multiple months at a time. Reading really helps us to extend our attention span, to be able to focus on things that take a longer period of time than just scrolling through social media. If we read on a daily basis, our brain is actually trained to focus for longer periods of time and to give more of its attention to the task that we have to, extract information from the pages and understand it. So the more we do it and the more consistently we do it, the easier it gets to focus on reading and not be distracted by other things. I've personally been through periods of time where I would read on a daily basis, and my first instinct at that time when I would finish one book is to pick up another straight away. But as soon as I would not dedicate this 15-20 minutes a day to reading, my brain would just find other things to do more instantly gratifying than picking up a book. So as soon as we stop, we go back to square one, especially if we stop for weeks at a time, for months at a time. We go back to square one straight away, and it's again so much more difficult for us to convince ourselves that reading is what we actually want to do. I usually try to stick some reading time in the evenings when I can relax, when I know all my work is done for the day, when I've done all my chores and there is nothing else that really requires my attention, and I can just let myself get dissolved in a book and relax. I say the word relax a lot, but that's true. When I go through my so-called reading frenzies, the periods in my life where I read on a regular basis, I am more grounded, I am more relaxed, I am more calmer. To me, reading truly is a very rewarding experience, and I do it for the enjoyment of the process of reading rather than for the outcome, for the result of having read a book. And again, I'm not really saying that I am perfect at reading. I actually struggle with it myself right now, so I really hope that some of the tips that I talked about will help me get back into that mindset of enjoying reading on a daily basis and be really useful to kind of get me back on track with that hobby, because I know just how rewarding it can be. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!